Okay, we are starting with our hybrid event. Welcome, everyone. My name is Trihil Birov, and this is indeed a hybrid event organized by the HSMonitor Consortium. We are the HSMonitor Consortium partners sitting here in Brussels, and we also have online guests. So welcome. Today, we want to present to you some emerging results from the HSMonitor pilot. The project has a few more months, but we felt that there are already some exciting news and some interesting solutions that the community that is interested in hypertension and blood pressure management should be aware of. So thank you for joining. This is, again, a hybrid event. It's a webinar also, so please be muted throughout the presentations that you're going to see, because later on we have a discussion and you can unmute yourself and ask questions, raise your hand and interact with our speakers and panelists. The webinar is also recorded, just so you're aware. And for those that have registered, you will also receive all the slides and the follow-up after the event. The agenda we have for you today is we'll start with a brief introduction about why we as a project actually became excited a few years ago to do what we are doing now. This will be given by Guido Iaccarino. Then we'll give you a brief project overview about what HSMonitor is doing, followed by a detailed presentation about the two solutions that we are currently piloting. This will be followed by some first insights from the pilot sites, and then we'll open for a discussion. We have a few panelists and speakers with us today. I will introduce them as their slots as they begin to speak, but without further ado, for now, I will give the word to Professor Guido Iaccarino from Federico II University Hospital, who is also the director of the Center on Hypertension and Associated Conditions. Guido, you have to come forward while I put your presentation.
Will sit by you?
Sure.
Okay, good morning, everybody. This is Guido Iaccarino from Federico II University. I have been involved since the beginning with this project, Health Status Monitor, and as a matter of fact, I should not have been the person to give this keynote on speech on hypertension. We asked, but the person that was appointed for this had a problem and so could not participate, and so I'm fitting I will do the best to fit in these uncomfortable shoes to regarding this speech. And so I want to start from this slide, which is a slide that was actually presented in an editorial by Victor Zhao. For those who are acquainted with hypertension research, Victor Zhao is sort of the... We have some noise in the background. Can you please shut off your mic?
O forse non hanno una regola.
No.
Okay. So Victor Zhao is sort of the father of hypertension in the sense that he has shaped many of the pathophysiological mechanisms that lead to hypertension, including the role of the renin-angiotensin system. And at the moment, he's the director of the president of the Institute of Medicine at the National Academy of Sciences for the United States. In 2019, he presented this editorial where he was, predicting what are in his mind the need for moving the field of hypertension and hypertension management research towards a new era. And so he saw several levels of intervention, which are then also integrated in this list here. So which included also digital transformation, data science transformation, and artificial intelligence, the change of the mechanism, the research of the mechanism of disease, and also the therapeutics for this disease that should involve biotech and biomedical research. The way the healthcare is delivered to patients, moving from a hospitality center to a patient-centered delivery of healthcare, and also the transformation of population sites that takes into account the large number that are obtained. And in particular, regarding digital transformation, he was saying that there is the need for digital health intervention that can help monitoring patients at their home with using different technologies, and that can also promote healthy behaviors like increasing physical activity and better diet. So he was introducing the concept that digitalization is not just the collection of data, but also a level of intervention that can measure, change the daily life of our patients. And how do you articulate this intervention? How can digital transformation intervene in everyday life, both on the patient and the healthcare provider side? Let's start from patient empowerment. By this meaning, we intended giving the patient cultural and technological support for the management of its own condition. Patients are the first actor in the recognition of the disease, but also in the management and the solution of the disease itself. And this is true for hypertension as well as for many other conditions, in particular chronic conditions. So how can digital transformation help patient empowerment? There are several examples. I'm taking some from Frontiers on Cardiovascular Medicine papers that I am directing in for this publisher, and among there are several examples that show what is the impact of the use of digital solutions to enable empowerment of patients, and how it changes the clinical scenario for this patient. So this is a table that summarizes the results of an intervention that was based on a coaching using an app illustrating patients how to measure blood pressure at home. And you can see that there are different categories of patients, patients that have normal blood pressure, as well as there are patients that have grade 1, grade 2 hypertension. And on their first day of measurements, you can see that the numbers, in particular for the grade 2 hypertension and grade 1 hypertension, are quite relevant. Grade 2, look in particular grade 2 hypertension. By the time that you teach these patients to start measuring their own blood pressure, and so those are the cumulative home day of measurements of blood pressure, you can see that there is a decrease of the number of patients with grade 2 hypertension, while they increase, there is a concomitant increase of the other numbers, meaning that this simple intervention, which is even before changing the treatment, the number of pills that these patients are receiving, is able to obtain a better control of blood pressure, because the patients learn that their blood pressure is not adequate, so start being more adherent to therapy, and therefore they downgrade their conditions from grade 2 hypertension to grade 1 hypertension, from grade 1 hypertension to high normal, and eventually to normal. So without having any other intervention from the doctors, this is enough already to obtain an amelioration of the condition of hypertensive patients. And we know that the better control, the better also the prognosis for hypertensive patients. Closer monitoring, the possibility that all these data are actually obtained and made available for healthcare professionals, it helps the professionals to give their own intervention. So now we are putting all the data available for the patients, for the doctors to make adjustment and measurement of the treatment. This is another example where that was actually taken in Japan over the years. So you know that in 2011 there was this big earthquake in Japan that was associated also with a nuclear disaster. And so that they had to relocate many patients from the area and put them in remote areas. So the doctors gave these patients devices to measure blood pressure that were connected with the hospital. So the data were given, were sent to the patients. By having available all this data, the doctors could make interventions which are depicted in the green and the gray columns that you see at the bottom of the graphic, meaning that they were adjusting their therapeutic interventions according to the data that they were receiving. Over the years, the number of interventions that was needed by the doctors tends to decrease, while at the end there is a better control of blood pressure. And you can see that over the years, this strict control has led the patients to lose almost 30 millimeters of mercury on the systolic blood pressure, and similarly 15 millimeters of mercury over the systolic blood pressure, which again means that the use of technology is making available data that the doctors can use for taking decisions in therapeutics. And this helps us to controlling better our patients. But not only there are the digital solution can help doctors to adjust therapy, but they can also help the doctors to better control the lifestyles of our patients. You know that changing lifestyles contributes to a healthier lifespan, and that adjusting lifestyles is actually a first level of therapeutics for our patients. So this is a figure to remember that healthy lifestyles affect the outcome of our patients. So in a dose-dependent manner, if you look at the graphic in color here, you can see that those hypertensive patients, these are all hypertensive patients that have unhealthy lifestyles, have the number of unhealthy lifestyles affect their outcomes, so that the risk to have a stroke is much higher for those patients that have unhealthy behaviors like smoking, or being sedentary, being fat, or having too much alcohol or too much salt in their diet. And so it is important to prescribe healthy lifestyles. So we have started a clinic for the physical activity prescription for chronic conditions that is based on the American College of Sports Medicine. And after the analysis of the physical needs of the patients, there is the prescription that is supported by an app that helps the patients, reminding the level of interventions and the level of exercise that they have to do at home on a daily basis, with the data showing and video showing the exercise to be performed. And we are now also able to record the adherence by measuring the levels of the activity that the patients actually perform at their home. These are the number of, for instance, of of accesses to the cyclette that we give to our patients in order to measure whether they are or they are not going on the cyclette according to the prescription that we are giving them. So we also monitor their activity at home to be sure that the adherence is strict, and this increases the adherence. As you can see, this patient has been on cyclette as prescribed. Finally, digital transformation can help the physician inertia in the making decision. Being the doctor of a hypertensive patient is a tough situation. This is the pattern of prescriptions and changes in prescription that has been described for some doctors in China, showing that essentially to achieve the best treatment for our patients, doctors have to introduce changes in the therapy that can go up to 5 sequences of changings of therapy. And you can see that there are many interactions between drugs or many effects described by the patients that make the doctor taking a decision how to change the therapy. And this can be a complicated manner, a complicated decision to be taken. Also because the doctors right now, they act like they are computers that have to integrate many informations. And so this is something that the digital technology can actually help, in particular with the collection of data and the use of algorithms for the selection of decisions that are more appropriate for our patients. This data integration has to take into considerations not only the clinical laboratory, the imaging data that are already taken in the patients, but probably also environmental information, including climate changes, the information that we are obtaining from devices, and in the future, but not so far future, also all the omics that tells us about the metabolomics and genomics of our patients. So this data need to be integrated to create models for the support of decision of our doctors. The problem is that there are several problems that need to be faced and challenged, and first of all, the choice of the right algorithms for artificial intelligence. Right now, there are too many algorithms, and none of them has been demonstrated to be better than the other for the available data, for the available databases for defining the support of our patients. But support vector machine, extremely gradient boosting, and random forests are probably the triplets from which the most important algorithm will be selected. Then these algorithms need to be explained to the doctors in order to be available for transformed for the doctors in information that they can actually use for deciding the therapy. And the Shapley values right now represent the best, probably the best solution, the most promising solutions for this interface between algorithms and doctors. There are still some other issues, like for instance, most of the studies do not publicly make their prediction algorithm available, which means that essentially these data are not reproducible to other with using different setups or different databases, and so it is needed that the algorithms become the objective of the research rather than some methods that are not better described within the research papers that are published. Also, the choice of the outputs to be defined is something that is needed to be better described, and often this is something that there's no agreement between the researchers, which are engineers, and the doctors, which are the ones that have to use these algorithms. And predictive performance is something still that needs to be decided to measure our algorithms in terms of their ability to perform for the prediction of data. So with this, I would like to conclude. There are many other domains where the digital solution can actually help us shaping the future of hypertension. I think that HS monitors have included all the ones that I have showed you, but also has provided more other domains that have been the challenge for the providers of this procurement. And we are going to learn in today's session also what is the point of view and the products that have been the results that have been produced by our providers with our data, with our patients. And the future is this: having patients that are away from the do not have the feeling to be controlled, because we have transparent technologies that allow them to be measured and taken care from abroad, using all the data, all the technology that the digital solutions can make them available, including cloud databases with big data that can be provided in a form that is useful for healthcare providers to change their access, from remote, their therapy of their patients. And probably we, with this new technology, we will have to rely on new other parameters. And now we are using mean blood pressure that are occasionally spotted, measured on our patients. Probably the data that we will have in the future available are actually of different nature. They will include a bit-to-bit variability and the maximum blood pressure exposure of our patients, and for how long during the day, in order to have a more better detailed predictors of the outcome of these conditions. And with this last slide, I remain, and thank you for your attention.
Thank you very much, Guido. If you have questions for Guido or any of the speakers, please wait a bit more, because we next want to present to you a brief overview of the project. Our HSMonitor project, so I'll be rather quick because I think the audience is aware of the problem that we are facing in terms of managing hypertension. Guido mentioned many of those points. Hypertension being a silent killer because it usually presents very few symptoms, so the person or patient is not aware that this is a problem for them. It is a major risk factor for a number of different coronary artery diseases, stroke, heart failure, etc. What we're focusing in HSMonitor is essential hypertension, so this is the blood pressure without a known cause. And we know that 1 out of 5 adults worldwide have this. And in terms of deaths related to hypertension, directly related with half of all deaths are from stroke and heart failure. So it is a significant problem. And a few years ago, 2019, different healthcare providers in Europe decided that they need to do something together jointly. By identifying this gap, specifying it. You saw the different domains that Guido presented. This has been the work of the project, elaborating for each of those domains what are the shortcomings at that time and how digital solutions and approaches can help in tackling this. And this is how the HSMonitor project was born. It is a project comprising 5, we call them procurers, so health authorities who want to buy or procure these new solutions, led by the Ministry of Health of Turkey, together with Regione Lombardia, Jämtland Härjedalen region in Sweden, and the Federico II University Hospital in Naples, as well as the Croatian Health Center in Zagreb. 5 procurers, and they're supported by partners such as Empirica and TIC Biomed in the project. And together they cater to a population of over 96 million people, of which, as we said, about 1/3 had hypertension. So the goal of our project was to procure our research and development services in the form of a solution that will provide innovative, digitally enabled monitoring to improve the status of patients with hypertension. And it is still a running project. It will conclude very soon, but we're still in the process of piloting the 2 solutions that you learn about. And there's up to 4.6 million euros were available for procuring the expected solutions. They were procured in a special format. So this project is a pre-commercial procurement, which means that there are different phases of development, competitive phases, meaning that there are different solutions that are being produced in parallel. The end stage of the project is that 2 of those solutions are piloted with actual end users, so patients and health professionals, over an extended period of time. And this is why actually we want to show you some of the emerging results through this event. This is the overview of how the project is structured. Phase 0 is where we actually came together as healthcare providers and elaborated what is needed. So all these domains were specified and suggestions made, requirements elaborated about what the solutions should be addressing. After which we launched an open market consultation, which meaning that we consulted with industry about whether our approach makes sense, whether it is realistic for the time frame of the project, and what kind of offers can be made. Following this, we launched a call for tenders, asking for those solution suggestions to be made. After which we selected in the first phase a number of different promising solutions that you see here, solution designs. So in phase 1, they were further elaborated. Based on the results of phase 1, we then selected 3 of those solutions who went on to develop prototypes in 2 different versions that were again tested with some of our end users. And out of this phase, the results led to the decision that 2 solutions will be fully developed and piloted in the 5 procurer countries and regions. And you see the names here of the leading partners, because both of those solutions are implemented by a consortium of different partners. We have this HSmart BPM solution that is implemented by a consortium led by Gnomon Informatics. We'll hear very soon from them. And the second solution is called HyperHealth, and it is implemented by a consortium led by Tech4Care. Next, I will give the word to I have one more slide. So yes, currently we are piloting those. As we said, we have 5 healthcare providers. The 2 solutions are piloted with different patients. So basically we have 10 pilot sites, 5 hospitals, but with different patients. The healthcare professionals are the same. And we are aiming to pilot those solutions in each pilot site for at least 6 months. Usually it's right now the average is about 8 months of piloting. And in total, we're talking about over 360 patients and 40 healthcare professionals across the 5 procurers and the 10 pilot sites. And you see the timeline here. So you see actually that the Turkish pilots have already concluded, and that is why we have a bit more extensive information and data to share with you from those. But many of the other pilots are still running. So you will see later on the kind of data and information that we can share at this moment. But we're still very much work in progress. And in a few months, we'll be able to conclude and have a final analysis and share with you the final results of this whole large-scale piloting. Okay, so I would like to invite next Asterios Papastergiou. He's a project manager at Gnomon Informatics, the leader of one of the 2 solutions called HSmart BPM.
Hello, everyone. Hope you can hear me clearly. Thanks, Striking, for the introduction. So today I'm gonna talk to you about one of the two solutions in the HSMonitor project, as Sahil and Guido said before. It is called HSMonitor Big Clear, and so you can see briefly what we'll talk about today. Speaking about a bit for some things you may already know, like consortium and the objectives and challenges of this solution. Secondly, I'll speak about the solution itself with some innovational parts and the interfaces that someone can find through our solution. And then for the experience of the pilot sites, which is very important and quite new for us, and I think we can all obtain very valuable incomes. So, as I said before, I am from Gnome Informatics, which is the leader of the consortium you see below. It is compiled of CERT, ARC, Promptly, Data Wizard, Mindment, and we are also consulted by the Athens Medical Society in terms of, let's say, medical aspects of this whole solution. So here I conclude a bit of the objectives achieved throughout this, let's say, journey. Of course, we always had in mind to match the requirements of the procuring authorities and make the job easier, let's say, for clinicians and the caregivers by creating streamlined workflows, by creating a friendly notification mechanism, and of course, automating patient-reported outcomes. Predictive indication mechanisms are present in our solution, for which I will speak in more detailed fashion later. We created a shared care plan, which is a modular set of shareable information mainly between patients and providers. And of course, we are always talking about having a great concern of the patient safety for detailed data privacy and security mechanisms. Of course, we have a patient consent mechanism and secure clinical documents. Regarding interoperability, I can say a few things in some following slides. We had the pleasure to test this feature in one country and exchange some measurements with the national EHR. So some challenges just you can see in this slide. We of course want to early detect patients at risk of developing hypertension. The main aim is, as Guido said before, the improved self-management of hypertension and generally the prevention of these situations. We of course aim to provide certain evidence based on health outcomes and generally the quality of life from the use of information communication technology as it is generally used in this field with new care models, in compliance always with data protection requirements. In general, we want to provide improved service offering, of course, both in medical ways and in business ways, because this is aimed to be a product, and this happens by leveraging the complexity of various healthcare systems under one unique platform. This is our main aim. Of course, what we briefly want is to impact the health domain in its several facets. Some innovation points found in our solution. You can see them in this slide. The early detection prevention component with the next 24-hour prediction algorithm and score charts. The shared care plan, which is modular and extensible, as I said before, which provides personalized guidance and, of course, better adherence to whole patient activities. Notifications and alert mechanism, which is the decision support system we have built, and it of course aims to better adherence to the care plan by the patient. Another component of drug-drug interaction by our Italian partners, the Wizard, which can predict the potential medicinal therapy conflict. And of course, some features like virtual agent and social community, which both are chatbot and community component for users to interact with. Secondly, I will mention our platform, our solution, which we build in detail. Here you can see the catalog of our main components. As I said, the prediction model, 24 hours of hypertension event prediction, the early detection with the decision support system, which helps the healthcare professional to be notified about abnormal measurements and high hypertension values, measurements, sorry. The 10-year risk of CVD prediction, the shared care plan, which contains activities, medications, questionnaires that the patient can fill in, educational material that the patient can read or study, appointments, and in general interaction with his information and the healthcare professional according to his availability. The drug interaction component, the virtual assistant, where the patient can learn more things about the disease, the application, the devices that he is about to interact with, and generally be guided through the application. A dynamic consent mechanism, which is a control, let's say, for the patient to share his medical information with healthcare professionals only on his demand. Visualizations, of course, for patients' adherence to the care plan. Those things can be seen both from the patients and from the healthcare professionals. And we think that it helps a lot, both of them to keep the interaction with the app. The community component and social component, as I mentioned before, a quiz game that we have connected with, let's say, the rewarding system, the badges that the patient receives in order to continue the compliance with the care plan and the app's usage. Integration possibilities with local premises of patients, PHRs. This, of course, is also according to its pilot sites needs. Multiple devices integration possibility, and as I said before, the interoperability with H75 tablets and everything else. Some brief screenshots from our solution. The virtual agent, as you can see, someone can learn about the hypertension, like information, general information about devices and about some medication that he wants to know more things. This is available both for the healthcare professionals interface and the patient's interface. The decision support system is a rule-based system that the patient and the healthcare professional can be notified about high values of any measurements requested. This is monitored by healthcare professionals web interface, as you see here, built by Seth. And it is tailored to his specific needs. He can choose how many notifications he can receive. He can choose the exact values to be notified and the occurrences that he wants to be notified in order to avoid notification overflow, which is another issue for healthcare professionals as it comes out from our discussions. Here you can see the predictive indications that I have spoken before. This is some list of the patients that you can see in the columns, the medication adherence percentage, CVD risk, which is calculated through the score chart. Hypertension prediction refers to the next day episodes, and is an algorithm that can, let's say, compile some information to indicate the percentage of facing a hypertensive event in the next 24 hours. And of course, this is with help of some neural networks to predict the next day, let's say, the episodes. This is previous work that it was implemented in. Of course, for more information on that, my colleague Andreas can answer many new questions in the end. Here you can see another healthcare professionals interface about the education. The healthcare professionals can add educational material for the patients to view. It can be easily added in the platform, even from a library. It can be created even on demand. So it is quite easy to add a link or a PDF file, for example, in here and assign it to the patient so he can study it from his cell phone. Here you can see the dashboard of the care plans of a specific patient. They contain questionnaires, medications. You can see here in a separate, let's say, care plan, sorry, in a unified one that contains everything of this information. Here you can see the social platform that Cell has built, which is social media-like structure, and the patients can interact with one another, sharing news and experiences throughout this whole, let's say, journey. And here we show you some interfaces from the patient view, which is then built by Nomon. On the first screen, you can see the patient's home screen. We keep it quite brief, let's say, with only important information depicting there. You see on the top you have the chatbot, the to-dos, my health section, find doctor appointments, and measurements at the bottom left, my fitness. In the second screen, you see the details of the measurements that come either from the devices paired or from integration, even by the patient themselves, in the case that we don't have opportunity to transfer the measurements automatically for this specific category. And in the third screen, you can see a detailed view of a specific measurement, for example, the blood pressure here. You can see when the last measurement was held, the graph with its showing the blood pressure and recent activity on the bottom, so the patient can be informed in a fast way how his values are evolving. This interface, of course, is also visible in the healthcare professionals' web application. In the fourth screen, you can see in My Health tab, where everything like allergies or condition or procedures, medication, everything of this kind of information is imported. If we have integration with patients, HR, previous events can be imported here, but any event that is further on to be scheduled can be imported directly in the application. On the left, you can see the first doctor screen. We have some filters, and on the top, and search by name. The My Doctor section refers to the doctors that the patient has already given consent to, so they can interact and the doctors can see the patient history. And below, you can search the doctor by specialty. You can, of course, book appointments with the doctor through the application. Of course, this is based only on the doctor's availability that was inserted, that has to be inserted before, so the patient cannot book an appointment whenever he wants, but only when the doctor is available. And this is both for physical or video one. In the first screen, you can see the care plan, how it is depicted on the patient's application. It has also adherence bars, so the patient can know what is his today progress and the overall progress, along with the to-do items and the detailed items assigned below. And then on the fourth screen, you can see a messenger-like structure that we created for the communication patient and the doctor, where the patient can make a quick question to the doctor, or the doctor can briefly have some news from the patient on his how this whole thing is evolving. And here, lastly, you can see on the left a specific doctor screen in the patient view with some information on the consent mechanism that can be enabled or disabled for the patient at any time. The patient can also choose if this is going to be limited or if it will expire at some specific date. The notification mechanism of the app is the second screen. The third screen is the chatbot. This is a Swedish example, but the patient can ask several things to the virtual agent we created, and he can get answers about medication or devices or information for hypertension, as I said. And the community component is depicted on the last screen. Of course, we have integrated some devices for the needs of the project. In general, we have integrated a lot of devices in the backbone of this solution, but the devices we use for this project are those that you can see here. The oral care guide was used for hypertension measurements, and the weight scales that you see below are split in each country, let's say. Here you can see a brief of functionality for integration layer, which is built by Turkish partners, ERC, and it's called AHIN. And here you can see how it transfers information from our platform to the national EHRs each time. Here I have a very brief mapping of use cases in the, let's say, combined project, and in the right side there are components from that we have built in this solution for the needs of the HSMonitor procurement. This is what I have mentioned before. And in the last part, I want to say a few things about the pilots. First of all, as an experience, it's very new in us, and we are very glad to participate in it because we can take very valuable input through this whole procedure, like interaction with users with the app, both patients, healthcare professionals. Of course, these discussions always come up in new features or editing existing features, which is very valuable, a very valuable opinion for us. We have built a separate technical support procedure because we have faced a lot of times, as everyone, many bugs that something's not working. We need to have a specific mechanism to deliver those solved. So we interacted a lot with the users and our pilot managers with that. And of course, clinical trial structure that we can see from a closer look, let's say. In the last slides, I have some graphs, indications for each country. Of course, we won't get in great detail. There are some metrics rising from the first results that probably are quite interesting for you to see. In the first screen, we see when users interact throughout the day. In Turkey, for example, you see that after early morning, we have a lot of users, but in late night, 9, 10 o'clock, we have quite more of that. In the right, you see some numbers like total visits or total page views and unique page views, indications that, of course, can hurt some outcomes in the early stage. Of course, the Turkish pilot was the longest one. That's why you see so high numbers. And in the graphs beneath, you can see at first the visits in a daily basis, and underneath the unique page views, along with all the pilots, let's say, time plan from day 1 to the end. Same structure follows for Croatia. You can see a bit differences in the first diagram that patients interacted most with the app in early morning and early night. Of course, the numbers are on the right. The numbers are lower because the pilot was shorter, and you can see on the last 2 diagrams the events of the patient, that have interacted with the app, and in the last diagram the direct entries, which are stabilized about 50 per day. So this was also, of course, for the patient number was rising through the pilot. And lastly, for normally enable some information, the structure is the same about the hours that patients interact with the application. As you can see, numbers are similar with the Croatian ones, and regarding events and the visits, same things follow, like stabilization of the users along with the patients, are coming in the pilot. For Naples, some similar things. The number is a bit higher. That's why the numbers here on the 2 below graphs are a bit higher. And in Sweden, we have some, let's say, small amount of patients, but the indications are same, only with the rise, as you can see, in the midday. Patients also interact with the app in the midday. And you can see again stabilization of visits when the patients were onboarded and they started using the app, which is the longest one. I don't want to say more things because we have more time. Big thanks to all of you that attended today, and of course to the procuring authorities for all this interaction for all these almost 2 years, both to the pilot sites and of course to the organization that support this whole project, like Empirical Discipline. Thank you.
Thank you very much, Asterios and team. And if you have questions for the HSmart BPM team, you can also put them in the chat. We'll have a look, or wait until the discussion part. But before that, we now want to introduce the second solution. Let me get the right slide. Yep. So the second solution is called HyperHealth, and it will be presented by Mauro Catena, representing the team. Two colleagues. Okay, please. Sorry. I think it will be Jacopo Delcini and yeah, Jacopo, feel free to use the share function.
You, Jacopo. Yes, unfortunately, we exchanged computers. Sorry. Morning, everyone. I'm about to present our solution for this PCP HSMonitor, which is called HyperHealth. I'm here with my two colleagues, Jacopo Delcini and Alfonso Perillo, respectively from Tech4Care, like me. Jacopo is a clinical consultant, and Perillo is a developer at GESAN SRL, which developed a section, a module of our solution. I'll try to go as quick as possible because we have a lot of material. This is the system architecture. It's composed by 4 main modules. There is a decision support system powered AI bot, which basically it's responsible of connecting a mobile app that we gave to the patients, on which they can record their measurements and they can follow up the healthy lifestyle advices from doctors. A set of IoT devices provided by WeThings, and a clinical platform, which is the main tool from the clinicians to overview and follow up the activities of the telemonitored patients. The system components in a more in-depth overview, to which I also added here in this slide the HyperHealth web portal website, which, as I will say in a while, it's dedicated to, let's say, the non-severe patient or the not yet diagnosed patient. So like the regular citizens. This website is composed by 3 main sub-modules: an academy in which we collected training materials free to browse and to watch, mainly in the form of videos to all the citizens, a risk score calculator that is used to understand if there is some sign of chronicity or any way of hypertension detected, and the community forum in which the citizens, but also patients later on, when they are included in the pilot and in the system, can share their experience. And there is the clinical web platform, which is the tool for the clinician, like I said before, and the mobile app for patient, which is called Saltiverse, and is characterized by the fact that it's a mobile app that is highly gamified. That is the, let's say, the paradigm and the approach that we decided to use for this project. I leave briefly the word to Jacopo to describe the patient certification that we use.
Yes, just a few words. As you can see here from this slide, the patients have been stratified according to risk development and following the prevention rules. So we divided them in primary prevention, people at early people that without a clear diagnosis of hypertension, and then secondary prevention, so people with high risk factor, but still not yet diagnosed with hypertension, and then tertiary prevention, people with a clear diagnosis of hypertension, divided into the last 2 parts with and to control, to provide proper control of their hypertension and to prevent the possible complication. And according to this, the platform can be set with different features to answer all the different problems and requested by the patient that have been divided according to their risk score.
Thank you. So let's spend some few words on the citizen perspective, which is the first certification that we described so just a while ago. I was mentioning before the HyperHealth web portal, and I already said that it contained three main blocks. The HyperHealth Academy that contains video library of training materials and useful links to follow for a healthy lifestyle. The risk score calculator, which is the main tool that is directed to basically detect if there is some sort of hypertension of whatever grade that can be spotted, and in that case directs the patient, the citizen, let's say, directly to our repository to download the app and to enter in the system. And the community on which you can see that red marks beside there, because according to different discussion that we had with the various procurers around the overall project in different pilot sites, in the end it was slightly used, if not completely not used at all. Then we can go to the patient perspective, where we can briefly overview the main features of Saltyverse. It's a mobile app for both Android and iOS. It can be downloaded and installed into different flavor. There is the light version, which is mainly oriented to provide the basic functionality for telemonitoring and self-measurement of health parameters, as well as to give the access to the Web Academy, which is the same that we described before for the HyperHealth portal. And to give access to the mandatory training, mandatory surveys that we should have administered for each patient for the start and the end of the pilot phase. And then there is the full version, which is fully gamified and which will provide advanced functionalities like augmented reality and geocached games, quests, and so on. We will see it in a while. Let's have a look at the main radial dashboard of the light version of the Saltyverse, which is in the end is the mostly used throughout all the pilot sites. It's divided in 7 different slices. Each one is aimed at giving control and overview on a specific health parameter among the one that we decided to make relevant for this project. Of course, the most important one is the blood pressure, but we also gave the chance to the patient to monitor its weight and calculating automatically the BMI, its activity with steps and activity count, the sleep on the form of the number of hours slept and number of wake-ups, the diet, providing a very simple survey to indicate to the clinician their dietary nutritional habits, the therapy that is providing the administration tool for signal to the doctor if they have they are following the medication therapy, and the habits to provide another simple survey for indicating habits about smokes, salt assumption, alcohol assumption. This paradigm is, of course, has been considered the most viable to make sure that the patient can self-report both manually and automatically their data, both from the devices, but also from other data sources that are available and that we will explain later on when we speak about the clinical platform. The hardware involved in the project is, as I already mentioned, the IoT devices provided from Withings, that can be connected either via Wi-Fi or Bluetooth, that provide accurate measurements, that are medically certified, and can also provide another important set of, let's say, secondary statistics that are not considered relevant in the clinical platform, but that can be downloaded as a dump of data anyway. And then we also provided to the patients that they requested a mobile phone that can be able to give a full functionality for the full version of the SaltWorks, so also for the gamified and the augmented reality features. Again, here's some more insight on the mobile application for patients. So the two main blocks, the one for the effective chronic condition management, which is anyway directed to grade 1 and grade 2 hypertensive patient, and the gamification module, which provides tools for hopefully augmenting, that was our course, our hope and our paradigm that we choose for the development of this app, that provide more commitment and means for remaining adherent, especially for what concerns the physical activity, which is of course one of the important pillars of the healthy lifestyle for the hypertensive patient. A few words on the digital twin paradigm. Basically, we using the information and the paradigm from video gaming and from role-playing game, we transposed the 7 slices that we described before, that you can see on the left part of the slide, to 7 parameters of a character, a digital character, a digital twin, which is a representation of the patient, and that is also represented by colored gauges that in real time, depending on the measurement taken from the person with the app, can change to represent the current status on that specific parameter. The main goal, of course, of the perfect SaltWorks patient, SaltWorks user, was to keep all that gauges at the maximum for as much time as possible. Again, here with some GIFs, animated GIFs, we can see some of the application in motion. In the first one, you see the normal everyday feature of adding and inserting health parameters. In this case, it is a weight measurement inserted manually. And then in the central one, there are the quests that can be undertaken for the patient that is decided to use the gamified version of the application. And in the third one, there is a leaderboard on which each patient can share his result, his badges, and his score points with the other persons eventually involved in the project. Again, another slide that shows the effort that we put in designing the villains and the enemies of this journey through the fighting the hypertension. We cooperated with a comic book artist that provided us very nicely done design that we then with our developers animated and inserted in this augmented reality geocached video game inside the application. Okay, let's continue with the clinician perspective. I briefly described already the clinical platform a few instances ago, and so I leave now the word to my colleague Valentino Perillo to continue describing the feature of the clinical platform.
Hello to everyone. As Mauro just said, I'm Valentino Perillo from HSMonitor, and we are the partner that provided the development of the clinical web platform. And the clinical web platform is developed to provide everything is needed for the clinical management of hypertensive patients' care plans or total risk by the clinicians. Briefly, the platform is divided in clinical record management tools to create and manage the care plan of the patients, and smart dashboard and decision support system for, first of all, monitoring the compliance of the patient's adherence to the care plan, and the support system for the management of the arterial hypertension, the arterial hypertensions. And then a system to data analysis, the data are received from the IoT devices. As you can see in the slide, the platform is cloud ready, so it can be easily installed on the cloud. And already we have installed the pilots in the territory of Italy, Sweden, Croatia, and Turkey, and all of them, but the Turkey have installed on Azure. But the Turkey is installed on the virtual machine in the Ministry of Turkey. The platform follows the GDPR guidelines to manage the data, save it on the databases. And the platform have the following feature to manage and create the care plans of for the patients, and can give the ability to the clinician to insert the patients inside the databases to collect the data and thank you to the feature we have, the platform give a system to have a care process for the clinicians, where we now show the most important of ones. There are the first one is the presentation of patients based on validatory scores. They can, when the clinician is logged, the first thing that the clinician will see after logging in the platform is a list of the patients that there are currently taken in. Showing to the higher risk to the mildest, for following the philosophy of higher risk actual to higher priority. The clinician have the possibility to select a preferred list of patient shortcuts to help to see very quickly terminal set of patients, and the list have the possibility have the features to help the clinician to briefly see the last record of data collected by the devices. Then we have the platform allows for the complementation of blood pressure and targets and analysis of the patients through the CDSS, which obtain the clinical data processes the clinical data, processes it and returns therapeutic recommendation to improve the person health condition, and show a complete dashboard of summarizing the patient status with a minimum data set required for the risk calculation, and a history of the risk level changes with data two-ways integration with national HRR. The CDS, the clinical decision support system, follow the guidelines of the European Society of Hypertension, and every time when the data is updated is every time when the data is updated is analyzes the values and give back updated set of targets. the platform allows the clinician even to set the personalized system of targets to the patients. So the targets can be personalized for each patient, and after the updated is the ranges are the risk level is visually adapted in real time. Then we have the therapy management with drug-to-drug interaction and a drug-to-food interaction, where when a clinician insert a new therapy for the patients, the system checks automatically if the active therapies are already registered for the patients, if the drugs have a risk interaction to the patients, if they can do harm or not. So the system will alert the clinicians about the risks, about the interaction of different drugs, administered to the patients. And this database for the pharmaceutical data is provided by our third-party provider, Vademecum.
Just a small detail more, but the Vademecum is a subcontractor that we contact with, especially for providing databases of information for drug-to-drug and drug-to-food interaction, not specifically for providing the drug database itself.
And last of all, the platform gives the ability to the clinician to monitoring the adherence of the patients to the care plan, showing the data in a form of charts, or even a list if the clinician focus on different chart, when the clinician focus on each different chart. And give them the possibility to see the feedback of lifestyle and diet service, and give even the possibility to give the patients diet administration to help to fight the hypertension. Now I give the speech again to again to Mauro.
Thank you, Valentino. So we saw briefly all the features. The main feature, actually, there were more, but we had to cut out something for remain in the timing of the presentation. The main feature of the clinical platform, we can speak about a little bit about the pilot phase implementation with our solution. I want to spend a few words on the work that we have done on language localization that, of course, touched all the modules and all the materials that we included inside both Salty-Wars, the gamified version, the not gamified version, the training materials, the drug databases, which of course we didn't translate it ourselves directly, but we anyway worked on the implementation of the different language in the different installation of the platform, and also the mandatory questionnaire for starting and ending the pilot phase, which again is not our direct translation work, but has been provided by the project management coordination by Empirica, and then we just implemented it in the different installation. So on the right side, you can see a couple of screenshots that give a brief presentation of the material that we used for instructing the patient on the main functionalities and the main actions that should be done on a daily basis using the application. The second one is a video tutorial that we provided both on YouTube and inside the mobile application, again, to provide the training information for the patients. And the third one is the software that we use for the localization, which is a CMS system online that we use to translate all the occurrences, both in the UI and in the content pages of all the software that we use. It's called Traduo and is hosted on our servers directly. Then, starting from the beginning, we provided the documentation and basically created this documentation together with the clinical personnel and the local research assistants at procureur site. This is a brief overview of what it could be a process of an enrollment of one patient inside the solution. This is the procedure that we try to use and to follow every time we involve the patient to be sure that everything is set up both on the side, from the point of view of the technical installations of the devices, on the software, or on the patient's mobile phone or on one of our provided mobile phones, and at the same time to provide the minimum to mid-level range, of training material and training knowledge that can be used by the patient efficiently in the following months of the pilot phase to minimize, of course, the occurrences of dropouts or of iteration of follow-up. This is a brief overview still about the enrollment, especially depicting the starting and the ending date on each pilot site and the number of patients that we managed to involve. We and the procure personnel together managed to involve in each pilot site, and then whether the support that has been provided to this phase, to the patient enrollment phase, was provided by us, especially provided by us together with the personnel from the consortium, from the procure side, if it was remote or if it was an on-site support during the enrollment. Then, of course, there is the follow-up and maintenance activity that we did throughout the pilot duration, and that we are still doing because, as some of our colleagues before mentioned, that in some of the pilot site, pretty much all of the pilot site except Turkey, this phase is still ongoing. We use different tools for approaching and for providing support for the follow-up, depending on the agreements and on the different situation of the patient population on the pilot site and on the personnel available on the pilot site itself. We use the phone support, we use WhatsApp group. We also held the physical meetings for reminding people the basic functionalities for doing like brief training, iteration training sessions, and also for solving their technical issues, their ad hoc technical issues. We also use the support ticket, the semi-automated support ticket that we have efficiently used to circulate the information about a specific technical issue from one side to all the other procure side and all the other personnel that is taking care about the follow-up in the other procure side. So this is greatly help. And of course, sometimes we also, together with our partner Jason, did some direct remote intervention, either in the clinical platform itself, following some suggestion or some notification of issues made by the clinicians to our personnel, or also directly on the different releases of SolutiWorks that we continued to provide throughout the duration of the pilot, whenever there was an issue and there was something that would be improved. About the offboarding, which is starting in a while on 3 pilot sites, and that will be slightly postponed for what concern Lombardy. We want to also provide a sort of a checklist document on which we can, together with the procurers, decide and agree on a minimum set of actions and workflow that should be done for correctly offboarding each patient, making sure that his or her data set would be maximized whenever it will be the time to extract the data at the end. We are envisioning like 20-30 minutes per patient. It can be done in person or over the phone. The main activities that should be done, except for all the clinical, I'm talking about the technicalities, of course, here. We are not want to, of course, overcome the clinicians or the clinical personnel about the clinical responsibilities or the clinical needs when a patient should be offboarded. But for what concerns just the technicalities, to be sure that everything goes as much good as possible, we want to provide this documentation. Then I leave again the word to my colleague Jacopo for speaking a little bit about the data that we are gathering.
Yes, just very few last words on the data. As you can see here on this data sheet, these are the variables collected among all our patients, and on the right side, the number of total observation collected. These observations actually are coming only for IoT devices, and highlighted in red, you can see those variables that are actually reported in the clinical platform. And in this graph, we can see the different amount of observation collected for those aforementioned variables, for those 6 variables, divided by countries. It is very important to underline that this is not a final version of the data, because in some geographical area, there is still an ongoing process of data collection until the end of July, and in some cases until the end of the year. Actually, we are not showing Turkish data because they ended their collection duties, and we delivered all the data to the project coordinator. So this is the end of presentation. Thank you, and thank you very much.
Very much. As we've seen, well, the ultimate aim is to make patients' life easier, but you can see that to do this, the systems behind it are very complicated and involve a lot of different things, a lot of devices, a lot of interfaces, and that's what we've been doing. We've been piloting those extensively, and there are positives and negatives, as any kind of pilot would have, because also a lot of the things that you saw and the apps were continuously being updated. It was an evolving process. So to hear a bit more about some first insights based on the completed Turkish pilot, I would like to next have Dr. Sema Basat with us. She will be reporting a bit on those experiences. Dr. Basat, welcome. Let me just share the screen very quickly. No, wrong screen. Okay.
So good morning to you all. I will present our site's experience today, which are Turkey results. Our official name is Turkey now, not Turkey anymore. So I prepared the slides for that. And I would like to start with the patient enrollment period. to find patients for this project was not so difficult since we have a hypertension outpatient clinic with a capacity of nearly 60 patients in a day. So additionally, patients were eager to join the project due to remote follow-up and blood pressure monitoring device supply. And we started to enroll patients on June 2022. And the first group, which was HyperHealth group, was completed on July 2022. And the second group, HSmart BPM group, was completed on September. However, due to lack of access to devices, we started following up this group on October. And here are some very small data. You can see both groups on the table, the female and male rates. And age was around 45 and 46. And staging at the start of the pilot was the HyperHealth group consisted of normal patients with normal blood pressure, 16 patients, and 22 patients with prehypertension. Stage 1, 9 patients, and stage 2, 3 patients. And in HSmart BPM group, normal patient was 25, and prehypertensive patient count was 18, stage 1, 3, stage 2, 1, and no stage 3. And at the end of the pilot, if you look, it seems the prehypertensive patients' numbers were increased in both groups, but stage 2 patients' number was decreased in HyperHealth group. And we see that more patients became prehypertensive in HSmart BPM group. I still have just unprocessed data of HSmart BPM group, so I will only present to you the HyperHealth group results. Here, without statistical analysis, you see that the patients kept their systolic blood pressure until the end of 6th month, around 123. And they also were in goals for diastolic pressure, which was 8 to 81. And they also kept their weight till the end of the study. And at the end of 6 months, they lost nearly 1 kilogram. And you see their step counts were always above 6,000. And the other data are measuring times, weekly and monthly. And they increase their measuring times gradually. And evaluation of patients' feedback, if we take a look at that, the patient's major complaint was data transfer problem. And the provided devices were not available to connect with the phone, and the data synchronization was not provided most of the time. And the application had to be updated frequently, and patients were upset with the technical failures. And once the problem detected, the technical team reached out to the participants and the connection restored. And on the other hand, most patients did not prefer to carry another phone with them, thus synchronization was not constant, and the patient's adherence to the project was decreased gradually because of that. And also chat box bugs caused communication problems because patients were not notified on the main screen once they got a message from their healthcare providers. And also this may have a negative effect on adherence of patients. Another problem was BP measurements of some smartwatches, especially in HSmart BPM group, were not equivalent to the manual BP measurements, so that caused trust problems to the project. And what about the positive feedbacks? Since the project provides easy and quick healthcare provider connection to the patients, they feel more responsible for their health, and they believe that their progress will be better. Generally, the patients were pleased to be in this trial according to the questionnaires. And what about healthcare provider side? They had to deal with data transfer problem all the time, and which made their job harder. And they had to call or text to the patients, which was really time consuming. And data transfer problem caused difficulties in patients' follow-up. And generally, doctors were not pleased with the system. And what about their comments or suggestions? More satisfying data or more satisfying outcome can be reached with a better data transfer process. And improved application will be more beneficial for patients. And overall, the work is still in progress, but doctors remain confident that remote follow-up in hypertensive patients will be beneficial in the long term. So I would like to thank you to Turkish Ministry of Health and of course to my team. 4 of them are absent because they were on holiday. I really couldn't do this by my own, so I would like to thank them all. And you know, on February, unfortunately, we had a devastating earthquake in Turkey. We lost nearly 50,000 people. So one of them was Ozan Beyhan, which we started the project with him, and who was a very kind, a really helpful person who will always be remembered. Thank you.
Thank you very much. As we said, this was the only completed pilot, but we still have a few other insights. And Alberto Zanini from ARIA, representing the Lombardy pilot, can give us a brief feedback as well.
Thank you and good morning, everyone. My name is Alberto Zanini, International Project Manager at ISPA Lombardy. Actually, I'm not a clinician, so I have a different background compared to the previous colleagues, but I may offer a different perspective. I'm mainly working on the digital identity solution and the interoperability, cross-border healthcare, so I may offer a different background and different experience in this project. Very briefly, our pilot operation started just before Christmas in December 22, and we expect to end the piloting phase by the end of the month. We have not yet reached the maturity, of course, of the piloting phase as presented by Turkey. What we can say so far is that we have interviewed during these 8 months, roughly 100 patients, more or less. We managed to recruit 68 patients, so let's say 2 out of 3. They are more or less equally divided by the HyperHealth HSmart PM solutions, and our piloting side, which is the Epidemiological Institute based in Milan, is also conducting a standard of care or clinical trial work on this group. These figures are updated last month, so they could be not completely accurate, but the general message is that we have not reached the original KPIs, but we reached, we believe, a good number of patients involved. So we are still working on the pilot, but we are, however, in the position to provide you with some main feedback collected so far. First of all, a quick comment about the piloting patients. They are a good mix of IT skilled person and non-IT person, let's say, so expert and non-expert. It was on purpose, of course, in order to have a comprehensive view of the solution provided. We are collecting very meaningful feedback about the usability. And the first feedback that we have collected so far is that exactly as presented by Turkey, both solutions are affected by some technical issues. These issues has led to maybe some support requested to our piloting side and to the suppliers. For example, as already mentioned, some synchronization problems between the devices and the server-side solution, or maybe the auxological support have been asked to provide some support when it comes to wrong blood pressure measurement. However, I would like also to provide you with a positive message, as already addressed by our Turkish colleague. Several patients, most of the patients are happy with the devices. In fact, they are asking to keep them after the piloting phase, which means that at the end, they believe that the devices could help them in their daily activities and can provide a better health at the end. So very briefly, this is our experience so far. Of course, we will keep you updated about the official end of the piloting activities. Thank you.
Thank you very much. I hope that our audience was able to get a good overview of the two solutions and the overall approach we have. As we said, we're still a few months into the project remaining, actually very intensive summer months, because we now need to wrap up the piloting and do the proper evaluation. So final results can be expected after the project ends, so after the end of September this year. We are moving into the discussion part. Maybe I can invite our speakers to come a bit closer. Again, this is a hybrid event, so we're right now in Brussels. Maybe you can come to the table. In case the audience has any questions for you, you can either use the chat, or you can also raise a hand and then we can unmute you and pose your question. I'm going to have a look at the chat. And while we wait for people to think about questions or comments they would like to have, maybe I can start. Well, we obviously heard there are challenges. That's normal with technology being tested. So what, from the pilot perspective, are next steps or things that need to happen for you to say, wow, I want to implement the solution to a wider scale? Because the project focuses on a pilot. But what happens at the end, after the project ends, is up to the different health providers. So what, let's say, Guido, what would you say from your perspective in Naples would be necessary steps to be able to say, yes, I want this in the future to be adopted?
So, first of all, I think that we are facing now a very challenging but also very interesting phase of the project, because things like this was never done before. I mean, there are very few, especially in particular for hypertension, there are very few experiences that were collecting together different solutions in just one platform. So I think that we are in the unique position of having the possibility to address a different aspect of the digital health solutions for hypertension. And so I think this is going to be unfortunate that we will only have a few 2 months for that. I'm pretty sure that all the discussion will follow up also afterwards, after the project is ended, which is something that is good on one end, but that will require probably further funding. So I'm really looking forward to the possibility to, together with this set of partners and maybe other partners, to apply for another project that can be follow the footprints of this and HSMonitor for implementing in real world the solutions that have been introduced. So I think that PPI could be a good evolution of this PCP, and hopefully the commission will be on the same tone, on the same tune. It is clear that there are technical issues that need to be solved. This was clear. I don't want to say I was among those that were anticipating that this was going to be one issue, but one of the big discussion that we had at the beginning was, are we ready to do a clinical trial? Can we do a clinical trial with this technical solution? And as long as we do not have a solution that is stable, technically speaking, we are not in the position for having any clinical trial. So I think that this has proven that the technology needs to be a little bit more mature. We need stability in data transmission. We need stability in the connection, and probably we need also to relieve both patients and doctors from the burden of having to solve and having to face and also having to provide solutions for the technical issues. I don't think that it is appropriate that the doctors are called because the watch is not working. They should be called because other reason. Otherwise we will have the opposite of our aim, which is that the doctors will refuse to take over these solutions because it's increasing their burden of work. So we need them to be relieved by this, and which means that we need to have apps that are stable and that do not need any further intervention, and stable connections. And I am also puzzled and intrigued by the results that, for instance, Turkey presented today, which are very, very, stimulating. Of course, they did not. The data today are presented in a gross manner. I mean, we didn't get into all the details, but probably. It is expected that on average there was no difference in blood pressure, because the numbers that you presented, those are not even hypertensive. I mean, there's a 120 over 80 millimeters of mercury. This cannot be classified as a hypertensive patient. So why do you want to see that non-hypertensive patients become even more non-hypertensive? I mean, there's no. But definitely, if we divide the data according to the initial status, we may probably see differences. Like, for instance, the data that I presented from this previous study, showing that those ones that are at the extreme level of blood pressure, the high, they are the ones that actually benefits more from self-control. So I would like to know whether you have already some insight regarding this.
We stratify the patients later into the statistical analysis. These are really they are in ranges. The patients with hypertension, but they are under control. We see the average results. So when we stratify them, it's high blood pressures, normal or lower, and then we see maybe the decrease or increase. Right. I don't know yet. after the analysis, I can tell. But I totally agree with you. And the system is still in progress. And also following up patients remotely is a very big advantage. For example, we had a corona period, and the patient will feel more confident. They will be able to follow up by the healthcare providers. So system has many advantages, but as you said, the technical development, it's related to technical development. We don't, by that way, we will see many problems. It needs to be advanced. And we know that mHealth progression is very fast. So I am very hopeful. And patients, in my opinion, if the system works properly, will be able to use. And the proper patients, of course.
Okay, and how about the supplier perspective? I mean, Asterios, Mauro, we have to say this is a very challenging thing because you had to deploy the solution in parallel, mostly in parallel, in 5 different locations across Europe. So with different teams, etc. That must be challenging. What would you say are things that you want to improve going forward with your solutions? What will you be focusing on? You can use the mic, you can just click on the. Yeah.
Yes, Brian, thank you for the question. Yes, as you mentioned, it was very challenging to deploy pretty much in parallel all the solution in all the countries with all the small to medium differences between each other, pretty much mostly from the point of view of the localization, which is sometimes maybe not highlighted as an activity, but it's quite not difficult, but time consuming. Okay, and so this can also sometimes in this kind of project diminish a little bit the focus that can maybe be done on the strictly development phase because of the joint effort of social. What I can add to this about what we can improve is that this experience has been super fruitful on a lot of different aspects, of course. Not last also about knowing a little bit the patient population, not directly the persons, but even today with the data that you presented and the discussion that we have done among all the population. Personally, I learned a lot about differences in people behaviors and in their difficulties on how to address a specific lifestyle, and especially differences that can be sometimes noticed about who is already pretty much oriented in taking care about his or her health on a daily basis, and who is instead a little bit more discontinuous or even sometimes forgetful, let's say. And I think that we have to continue focusing on that specific part of the patient population, let's say, those that are unaware or that are discontinuing their applying the correct lifestyle advices, and the struggle with this kind of technologies is mostly that. Also, of course, the everlasting challenge that we have, at least in this moment of time, with these generations that we are dealing with, about the digital divide and the digital literature of some specific strata of the population. Addressing these 2 problems, so changing the way of life, even with simple advices, with simple activities, but that has to be done on a continuous fashion, okay, over even quite long period of time, but with sometimes maybe the delays that we had with the enrollment on some specific pilot sites and that will leave a few months maybe of the trial, they are not enough. Okay, sometimes. So this is the first one, and the second is the eating the digital literature in the sense that we are all, most of us that are working in technology are super used on managing whatever screen, whatever device, whatever set of buttons or different graphical interfaces that appears on screen, but we are not the person that are inside this room. They are not the target population. They are not those to which this technology should be addressed. So personally, my intention in the future, it will be to think more about this, detaching from myself when I try to organize things, to deploy systems, etc., and be a little bit more on the other shoes from this couple of point of views.
Well, if I may add on this, because I think that this is a very important aspect that you have underlined. It is clear that technology can be a great support or a great divider. I mean, the comment that patients from Turkey didn't want to carry an extra cellular phone. It's meaningful regarding this. The comment that the doctors were not satisfied or having to solve technical issues is exactly this. So I think that the next step is that the technology should be transparent. So patients do not have to have the feeling that they are monitored. Also because this can change their behavior. I mean, they can influence their behavior. If they feel that they have to do something to be monitored, they might refuse to do that because they don't want to get monitored. They have to be monitored without knowing, not without knowing, but without this being a burden for their daily life. Okay, so they accept to be monitored, then forget about the fact that they are monitored so that they can live their regular life, and we can actually have the regular life. This can be done because we have experience with other projects that technology can be transparent to patients. We can have them monitored without them being annoyed by the fact of being monitored. On the other hand, we need that all this data are all conveyed in one solution for the doctors. So the electronic health record must be the only access for the doctors to all these technology. Otherwise, if they if they have to open one application, then open another application, then open another application, remember password for all these applications, trying to make copy and paste in the right position of the data that are collected from one application to the next. It's a burden that will make the technology not uptaken by the doctor. So we need that this solution is one, and probably we were talking about this yesterday in the discussion. What would be if we did this PCP again? What would be asked? With my perspective, we would ask not interoperability, but one solution. One closed solutions that eventually could be interoperable with other systems. But probably what I would ask now is having one portal that collects everything, rather than having to try and get data from different spots, having everything done already in one single solution. Sebs, what do you think?
I can agree with all of you. All of those points mentioned are mostly what we think about. We are mostly in engineering, like let's say consortium, probably like yours, and these PCPs are a huge opportunity for us to interact with healthcare professionals because we are actually building solutions for healthcare professionals and patients. So we are eager to participate on those and try to get the maximum of the feedback. As Mario said, of course, this is very difficult because you have to satisfy different patient groups, different healthcare professional groups, and try to keep it unified. What you Guido said just now is generally my suggestion in all of these efforts. Try to keep it as simple, and by simple meaning, as you said, one, the number of, let's say, portal or app or solution or whatever. So you can maximize that way the adherence and the engagement of both end users. What we try generally to do through this experience is to minimize errors, but in any aspect, from interfaces or from features that are requested between discussions, and everything, or from patients feedback, like this device, or I cannot carry this device, or whatever. So our view and our, let's say, point in this project is to try and find ways to continue, as Straker said before, this effort. I can say, of course, through which all collaboration in general, but what we obtain from all these pilot experiences are in general very valuable feedback, because when we build a solution, we think of, as Mario said, of one way, like an engineering environment, and then we come to end users like totally another world. We face things that you have not thought of, we try to address. Something that I would like to highlight is, probably Dr. Sema mentioned, is that the doctors are involved a lot in the support procedure, which probably isn't what should be. This can only be eliminated by allocating work to colleagues, or at least this is my thought. I can't think of anything else. This is something that we also try to do as the other end user of this, let's say, effort, the more technical aspect. This is, as I mentioned in my presentation, very first time for us to build a pathway that is an actual pathway to solve technical problems, not with our minds, but with feedback of real users. And we have, I think, managed to create a pathway to satisfy the needs and be accurate on time without having persons to wait forever to fix something. But in general, what I could say here is that we are eager to continue this type of efforts, because this is our only, let's say, way into the real world of healthcare industry, in the real world of feedback from patients, healthcare professionals, or system users, or whatever. So that's good.
Let me add something, Israel. Just a couple of additional comments from the Lombardy region about the EHR integration. It's not an easy task. Together with Alexander and other colleagues, we are involved in a number of cross-border healthcare interoperability projects. And we can assure you that there is a number of different standards, practice, habits, database, web services, and so. So not an easy task for the supplier, but I agree with you, with all of you, that it's a mandatory step towards the full integration of this kind of solutions. And another comment is about usability. In my experience, the technological issues can be overcome quite easily, let's say, but we need to have on board our clients, which are the patients. And in order to have them on board, we need to build usable solutions, attractive solutions. Thank you.
Thank you. We have also some questions from the audience. One question here, and I think, Sterios, you already more or less covered it, but still, for the suppliers, which have been the main benefits of developing a solution side by side with procurers? You mentioned interacting with health professionals, but also with the procurers generally, because of the nature of the PCP. We have phases, we give feedback, and inevitably there's a lot of interaction. It's not like, please do this solution and we meet in 2 years' time to see the result. It's a very dynamic process. So what were the benefits for you compared to other projects where maybe the interaction with the client or the health provider is not that intensive?
to the suppliers. As I mentioned, most let's say valuable for us, most valuable feedback is what we get from the user experience and try to enhance solutions in a way that are really helpful and not enhance them just in our minds and make it more difficult. This is the main thing that we are looking to cover with those issues, those things. As you said, going through phases is quite important because from my experience of that, when you try to, for example, analyze a protocol in phase 1 and then you move into phase 2, interact with healthcare professionals, find out that this is not going to work, take an alternative, and while building the solution, try to catch timetables and everything. These things can help you more on the precaution, let's say, try to addressing issues before they even happen, try to expand your mind, your thinking on how to cover everything, but in an earlier fashion because you won't have overlaps in the end. But as you said, my opinion on that remains almost the same, that the interaction with different groups is mostly what is desired from our end on this, and this way we can enhance our products and solutions more efficiently.
Yes. Me as well, I totally agree with Steus. The number of occasions on which you can meet the client, as Alberto rightfully called them, it's not ever enough. Okay, so for my anyway limited experience with this kind of instrument, yes, there are phases. Yes, there are workflow that we should follow with different interaction that are scheduled throughout different countries. It's super good, but we and probably we as supplier to do something like that, something about this in the next iterations, in the next project. We should augment as much as possible, okay, increase as much as possible the occasions on which we can meet the patient. We meet or anyway the end user, okay. With meet, I don't mean, of course, that we have to go to their houses or organize every time meeting like this with them, because it's super difficult and sometimes it's annoying for them. But we could also start more to use remote instruments to make as much as possible people try the solution while it's in development. I don't know if this is even possible within the framework of the PCP, maybe not completely, or it will be in the future. It's already is like this, but we failed to catch as much as possible this opportunity. In the future, it should be done. So inventing or using intermediate tools that are available online anyway, and on which you can try the solution and get feedback in the moment that you need it, not like 2 months after when there is the meeting schedule with patients or with clinicians. So you are developing Friday and you can do some assumption on the next Tuesday, not the next month. While in the meanwhile, you already have developed something that could not be viable and even useful. Okay, so condensing as much as possible the time, the development time, making every week useful instead of just waiting for a specific moment to get feedback. Of course, this is not possible, but completely, at least, the pure side and on European Union side as framing the project, deliverables, and institutions and deadlines. So maybe it will be mostly on us next time that we try to contact as much as possible and allow sessions, patients and users. Thanks.
Yeah, going back to the issue that what would you do different with PCP? listening to the provider's point of view, I think that one of the restraint that the PCP was asking for is that the consortia are fixed from the beginning. And I think that this could be actually something that it's not helping for the developing of the best solution for different reasons. One is that the technology is running fast, so maybe while they have consolidated their consortia at the beginning, some other solutions have been appeared that we cannot integrate because they were not in the original consortium. So that could be something that might be corrected for the next PCPs, and that it is possible to modulate the composition of the providers along the line.
Yeah, there are some small ways to do it with subcontractors, but indeed the core group is fixing PCPs. This could be a limitation. Yes. We have another question online. Do you have any synergies with other European funded projects, initiatives in the world of digital health that are relevant for you?
Which was also digital health. We followed up patients remotely, diabetic patients, and we didn't have that much technical problems in that project. And I would like to share one of the a period we spent in Corona, so we also be able to experience that period, and it was really successful. So these mHealth applications are useful in following chronic diseases. This is my opinion.
Okay, thank you. Is there anyone from the audience online who would like to ask a question? Feel free to raise your hand.
Yeah, and something. I think we expected the machine learning and artificial intelligence in decision support, personalized decision support. We couldn't reach that goal. If we can reach that goal, the system, I think, will be perfect for the healthcare providers.
I have a not a comment, but I think I think that it has been generated over the last years. An ecosystem essentially for the digital health with a series of projects from the Commission, digital health uptake, network for age. I mean, there are several projects that some of them are actually thought for showcase the solutions and the best practice that so probably we will interact with these projects in order to have the solutions that are generated from this project and from Power or from Inkerart, which are the projects where we and Turkey have been involved together. But there are many other projects that are there in order for having all these solutions on the market, or at least in the ecosystem of the European Commission. So I think that the interactions with these other projects can be useful for the promotion of the solutions that we are generating.
Okay, thank you. I don't see any other questions online. Just of course the components. We just have one question just now, so I'll read it, question or comment. I'm not sure. It's a bit long, so
From my experience, remote tools for patient support, especially when we deal with older patients, are not always sufficient. Physical contact with patients is required, phone calls, etc., to make them feel they're supported and motivated to use the system. This means that sufficient resources are required in the clinical side. Example, research nurses to support the use of the tools, call the patients, enter the data in the platform, etc. Health professionals don't have time to do these tasks. General comment. Thank you for that.
Can I add something to this? This comment triggered me another.
Can you just move a bit closer?
This comment triggered from my mind some other thoughts. Sorry, including them before. When I was thinking about making contact with patients and then users and users before, I spoke about the effort needed on deploying the solution on site, which really involves contacting persons and explaining and make training to them about how to use the solution. I failed actually to mention exactly what we said there. Of course, we cannot expect health professionals, clinicians, doctors in an hospital to be as supportive as it would be needed for this kind of activities. But sometimes we are also sometimes a technician consortium or anyway development and digital technology developers consortium. Maybe we lack that extra hand that we can use, because even sometimes if we want to, we have time, we have effort to spend on creating this contact with the patient. Sometimes we're not allowed to, because of course we are dealing with personal information, privacy, and this kind of stuff that are of course behind a rightful set of rules for these specific projects. And so we can be limited only on the technicalities, but maybe we lack that touch, of involvement, transferring of involvement to the actual end user. So I'm not sure about a solution for this. It can be complex, but I think it would be another small but important point of ways there is room for improvement for the future, to help with this spreading of the contact that sometimes is needed to make the technology effective, no matter if the user interface is usable or not, if it's beautiful or not. Sometimes this is exactly what is needed with some people. Okay, and then everything flows more.
I have a question. I actually have a question for the providers, and so at the end of the HSMonitor study, what are your plans for the solution? So do you think that this solution will be your flagship product that you're going to sell to other providers? What are you going to do with with these solutions that you have generated for us?
In our view, specifically in our consortium, we can see a system that, of course, as we discussed before, needs further tailoring and further implementations to be ready for a natural market. But of course, I think we have created more than enough, let's say, backbone of a product. Of course, our aim is to further enhance it, go in the market as the PCP for this for. But of course, this cannot happen in 1 month or something. Probably you all agree with me. Our aim is, as I said before, to continue not exactly trials, but involvements with end groups like patients and healthcare professionals through, I don't know, extensions of, for example, the current collaboration, another collaboration, or whatever, so we can reach a point that as Dr. Sama said before, many technological components will be actually ready to stand out in the market. But when I say the market, I mean like normal market, for example, that you have an application ready to download from anywhere and anyone can use it, like real world market. Of course, the call cannot support that in 2 years' time or something, but I think the effort that was done is more than halfway, if I can say. I feel that we have created a substantial backbone for 2 or 3 final touches to be ready to stand out in the market. But in general, we aim to continue collaborations in such forms or other forms. Of course, more information on that here from Alex here, please, from our end dealing with more, let's say, business aspect.
For what concerns us, we have a few different ideas actually. We wanted to wait until the very end of the autopilot phases in different countries to have a complete panorama. But for sure, we can already say that we will continue. Basically, GESAN is already working for commercializing the part of the clinical platform in the Italian market. And so this line of commercialization for sure will continue, especially taken further by GESAN itself. For what concerns Tech for Care, we were anyway thinking to continue the work around SaltWorks, and that even if it's to change name or form somehow, we want to try to create a standalone version of SaltWorks that can also without the connection with the clinical platform, and so that anyone can download it from the store and start using it for self-move, still including the gamification part, but of course leaving in that case the freedom to connect the other different kind of devices that are not strictly only the meetings package that we use for this project.
Okay, there's been another question online asking about how do we actually classify the solutions in the devices. So according to the medical device regulation, what class are they? Is it class 2A?
Personally, I'm the more knowledgeable to answer this. If it means the apps, like mobile apps only, the entire.
Well, yeah, the question is how should these apps be classified according to regulations? And the example given is the medical device regulation. We might have to come back to you on that.
Yeah, I can say a few things maybe.
Yeah.
So regarding classification, I don't know from which country I'm from, but in general you have the classes of devices. They are depending on the hard to human, let's say, that they can arrange. So mostly devices on this type of technology that we are discussing about today are class 2A. And with further, let's say, components that can interact with humans and are more, if I can say, error prone, are moving further on 2B or class 3. Devices that do not have all interaction with health data or anything are in class 1, which is previous stage. For speaking for our consortium, at least, the backbone of the application is certified as a class 2A, which consists of the information traveling in the software, etc. Under the medical device directive, which is MDD. In the next years, this is going to be replaced by regulation, which is the NDR, which is already taking some years more to conclude. Neither 2024 that was built some months ago. So the addition of this regulation is mostly data security issues and issues that concern data traveling along platforms or along servers. And this gets technical details that I cannot unfortunately answer. Plus additions on the, let's say, clinical implementation of what is needed from a clinical trial perspective. If you have to run a real clinical trial like Lombardy region is doing, you really have to move to the literature to prove, if I can say, that your solution is like another solution. So you can collect answers from there and claim that you have the class required 2A, for example, like the one we are talking now. I hope I covered the question.
Thank you. Seems there are no other questions. Then yeah.
For what concern our solution, I mean, the process of the certification of the system, the integrating system, of course, it's not been covered by the between development of PCP, so it's something that takes time, etc. But the backbone of the solution can be considered a class 1 in our case, because there is only transferring of data in the raw format throughout the cloud. For having a medical certification more advanced and more further than that, of course, there is a process that takes time, and we will be thinking about whether or not to implement the certification process depending on the outcomes and the decision that we will be making for the commercialization, especially if it will remain as a single solid solution, or if, as I mentioned to Dr. Zaccarino, we want to proceed to a split commercialization of the two parts.
Okay.
It does. Another one.
No, it's
That should be just guidance.
no, we already covered this. So we're at the end. If you have any final thoughts, maybe anything to say. What I want to say is, first of all, to thank you as panelists, and also to our consortium here for being present in Brussels, and also to everyone present online. Again, these are emerging insights, so please wait for a few more months. And if you want to stay in touch with us, make sure to follow us on social media, or also on the website. You can subscribe to not miss our announcement when we have a final project event, in order to discuss the final outcomes of our pilots and also possible next steps. So thank you again, and thank you for joining online, and have a good day.
Thank you. Thank you.